We're live. Okay. So let's take it from page 147. Just a quick review, and then we're going to jump to the next page. So what did we say last time? After the Baal Shem Tov taught us about this idea that there's the light of Bereshis Bar Elokim Ace, right? That basically Bereshis is Chochmah, and the Chochmah gets encloaked into the Ace, the Aleph to the Taf. So remember, the Hashem cloaks himself into Aleph, and this creates the world of Atzilus. Then he cloaks that Aleph, which has the Neshama there in it, or the Chochmah in it, then cloaks itself into the base, creates Bria, and each level keeps cloaking until you get to Taf. And then we said really Taf is not just the 22nd letter, it's also like the gematria of 400. So there's all these different stages of contractions, 400 levels of contractions. And then there's something called the Tohu, Vavohu, Vachoshech, V'Tahom, as the pasuk continues, which means even after those 400, it goes into a whole other state of like disastrous to contractions, etc. Right? But then we started to explain the Magid's Vort, which was on the pasuk Shtei Chatzotros Kesef, which means that there's two silver trumpets, and we said Chatzotros comes from the word Chetzi Tzuros, which means there's two half forms. And we said that man is half a form, and Hashem is, so to speak, half a form. The half a form of man is the dam, right, the blood, which is also the dibur and the machshava, where we need to fill the dibur and the machshava with elukus, which is the aleph, the alufo shel olam. Hashem is also, so to speak, incomplete until we make Adam. So how do we do it? Hashem made all these contractions really because he wanted to communicate with us. He wanted to have a relationship with us, and he couldn't because of his great light. It was too much for us to even exist. So he couldn't have a relationship with something that can't exist. So he makes all the contractions, so he makes like the lower surah, which is the dam. But the intention is that then we would strip ourselves of all the gashmias and climb up all those contractions, sort of by removing the false reality and the condensed consciousness which each world and each level presents, and sort of free ourselves from all that and connect with the Aleph and then become Adam and join him as one. So what do we see? The last word on the line, second line from the bottom of the page.
Can you say that last part about how the Adam gets into man?
In other words, when we rejoin with the light that Hashem wants us to, in other words, why did he make us the half form? Because he wanted us to have a separate existence, so that there would be someone to experience him. The only problem is when he makes us have this separate existence, at first it makes us other than him and like sort of disconnected. So it puts a job on us to undo all the coverings and then meet him again, which is the Aleph, his, so to speak, half, and then we become Adam when we meet together. So Adam is the full form of God and man as one. So 2 lines from the bottom of this page, it says, Mizem Muvan, right, page 147, and that's just it, just one line we're going to do, and we're moving to the second page. Sha'av sheishtem kamen tzimtzumim, even though there's many contractions, helem acher helem chulei, as the Friedrich Rabbi puts it, there's concealment after concealment, which, mind you, what is concealment after concealment referring to? The Orein Sof, that's Lamai Lamaila Adin Kates, right? That's these words that he's quoting is a definition of the infinite light that goes infinitely high. What it winds up doing is making concealment after concealment, because no matter where you are, it's showing you that I'm beyond you. So it keeps creating more and more states of yesh, where there's like an absence and an absence and an absence. It's really divine light going up. So even though there's all these tzimtzumim, contraction after contraction, makom makom, nevertheless, ein ze ba'ofen sha'or eino shayach l'makom shabo misalam. It doesn't mean that the light is no longer shayach to the place where it's concealing itself from. Because on the contrary, Hashem actually wants that light to be right where he left it. It's just that if he would have left it there without making the contractions, you wouldn't have existed. So now that he's made the contractions, he really just wants you to go find it again. That same light that he took away, right, is relevant to being in that same place, and that's the job of man. Turning the page. Page 148. Everyone has the second page? You should. V'hainu she'eino shayach giloi klal. V'hainu she'eino shayach legiloi klal. It doesn't mean that it's not shayach for there to be revelation there, right? In other words, the point is, even though he removes the light, it doesn't mean it's not relevant that the light would be revealed there. Ella, rather, tachlis hakavanahi, the purpose of the whole matter is Sheyumshach ha'or lamata b'makom shebo nimtza ha'adam. Is that the light should come right back where the man is found. The man wound up being found there because the light was taken away. But the purpose that the light should return there through the work of man, by undressing himself, divesting himself of all the gashmias. V'ofen shel his achtus, in such a way that they unify, so to speak, these two lights. Sh'tpa'el ba'ofen penimi. Right, that the light will be there again, but in this way the light will be there while the man is there. Which means you have sort of two opposite things. You have the metzias of the person, but because he's divested himself of all this gashmias and chumrias and corporality, so the infinite light which was too bright to allow for his existence can come back there, but it now comes back, so to speak, inside of him in a way that he can perceive it and maintain his coordinates. So it's a fusion of the two lights, of the Orient Sof that's Lamayla Maila and the Orient Sof that's Lamata Mata. The Orient Sof that's Lamayla Maila made him be there. But his job then sort of draws forth the original Orient Sof, which negates his being there, which will be there simultaneously. And that's sort of what it means to reveal the essence of God, right? Because the essence of God is both of those two lights at the same time. God is both infinitely high and infinitely low. He's full revelation and he's full absence. So when he makes the absence, and then the man undoes the negative part of the absence and reveals God again, he's revealed both aspects of God in that place. That's the atzmus, and that's the whole idea that in this world specifically, was the lowest place of the greatest concealment, we have our hands on being able to bring down the atzmus if we do this avoda of making ourselves into a mishkan. In other words, removing all the negative aspects of Gashmias and making it just nothing other than a kli to hold God inside of ourselves.
So what's the point?
To reveal the Atzmus.
No,
To reveal the
why
Atzmus.
would God do it?
To reveal the Atzmus.
It's like Hashem's playing hide and seek with himself.
The Atzmus needs to show itself. Right? Before he had the Atzmus and it was like, so to speak, unrevealed. It was just, he was by himself. He was not sharing this atzmus. It wasn't revealed to anybody. So now he wants to have a relationship, which means to reveal himself. We can't just reveal part of himself because that's not a real relationship. You don't have a relationship with a person, you don't really know who they are. You never get to see the real them. Right? So if he wants to reveal his full self, he has to reveal his atzmus. So this is what he's doing.
So why did he make Goyim? It's enough to just make us.
It's not really, because the us is that we are in a world, right? We're in a tachton. In other words, we need the goyim. We need, just like we need the sun and the moon and the trees and the wood. You can't make a mishkan out of Jews, right? You have to make a mishkan out of stuff. And the stuff becomes, you realize that the stuff itself is God, right? It's just an aspect of God that looked like he removed it from him, but through the avodah of the Am Yisrael, you can reveal the istalik yikar dekucha bricha b'kul ami. Hainusha Adam shemitzar atzmahu rak dam, which means that the man that on his own he's only blood, or dalet mem, half a tzura, yishbor, right? Durch berechen, he should break himself. As kol agashmi shelo, all of his physicality, right? That you're not interested in any of the shmutz. And he should elevate himself, so to speak, from below to above. Right? You're not jumping off the ground. Elevating yourself from below to above means all of your corporality, all like the things that you have it says, right, why did Hashem create man on two legs? Because we can see the heavens. Right? An animal, he just looks down, which means his whole preoccupation is with earthly things. So that's what it means to elevate yourself, like to get yourself to not be excited and running around the earthly matters, right? To elevate yourself. And therefore, you can join with God. In other words, this is the Aleph, Alufo Shel Olam, the master of the world, who's called by the name Aleph, Alufo, Ba'ofen Shel Achdus Tzura Shlemu. Now they become one, which means you have the whole form, right? You have the actual existence of the Tachton, but you have a Dira B'Tachtonim. The Tachton is not disconnected in absence of God. The man worked on himself to allow the infinite light, which couldn't be there to begin with, to now be there through his own avoda. And there you have both forms, Adam. It's not so simple to be an Adam. Let's put it like that. Fine. Gimel. Mamshich ba'maimer. Now, the Frierdiker Rebbe continues in his Maimer, Basi Lagani, chapter 15, and he says, Hini lifnei hatzimtzum haya or ein sof bagiloi. Now, before the tzimtzum, of course, the or ein sof was fully revealed. Kamo shekasu be'etz chaim, and this is what we quoted before from the Eitz Chaim, written here in the holy city of Sfas. Terem shena'atzlu anetzalim, and what does it say over there, right in the beginning? Before the emanations were emanated. What are the emanations? The world of Atzilus, called the world of emanation, Atzilus. Before they were emanated, Haya or Elyon Pashut, there was a singular or higher, simple light. Mamali is kol Metzias v'chulu. We quoted this before. It was the simple light that filled the whole Metzias. In other words, what's the Metzias? The would-be place where there could be an existence. It was not yet able to come into existence because this simple light, and again, what does it mean, simple? Indivisible, which means it cannot be contained, and therefore it's no boundaries can hold it back. Therefore, any concept of metzias, of a self, is impossible. And before Hashem emanated these worlds, this light was filling the would-be place of the metzias, of the world, of the existence. And and through the tzimtzum, it says he concealed that or ein sof. That very light, which was not in making existence possible, he removed it. He hid it. That's end quote from the Eitz Chaim. Umizem move on inyan nosaf. From here we can understand an additional matter. Shatzimtzum hu rak b'chinas ha'or shayamimali es kol metzias. That now we're going to dial in a little bit closer to the tzimtzum. Where did it happen exactly? The tzimtzum only took place upon a particular aspect of the light. And that is the aspect of the light that filled the would-be metzias. In other words, in the place where theoretically existence could be, it was being overshadowed by this light. That light, which fills the place of where existence could be, was contracted. Masha ein kein, not so, kefisha or ein sof lamayla. Whereas the or ein sof, before it was, so to speak, expressing itself in that place where existence could be, which means at some level, like outside of these Hashem's atzmus and shining, that light which precedes the shiny light, which negates all of the would-be existence, but b'chinas atzmus, which is the or ein sof as it is inside of Hashem, Sham lo shayach lo mashaya or elyon pashut mamalis kol matzias. There, at that light, we can't apply these words of the Arizal that says there was a simple light, the high light that was filling the whole place of the would-be matzias, because it didn't fill any kind of place of the would-be matzias. It was yet still inside of Hashem's essence. Okay, fair enough.
So are there like coordinates and are inside?
Yes.
You go 100 miles up and like
yes.
50 miles to the left. That's the would-be place of the void?
No. What we're saying is that we're saying basically that there's some kind of, there's God over there somewhere, right? He doesn't take up space, right? But he shines. And this shine that comes out of him is shining in the place where theoretically existence could exist. Why are we saying that? Because obviously the existence experiences itself to be outside of God, right? So there's some kind of an outside of God in theory where existence would be taking place, at least to itself, where it experiences itself as something outside of God. The place of the would-be metzias, obviously everything is inside of God. When we say there's a place of metzias, it means there's some realm inside of the mind of creation, which experiences itself to be outside of God, right? That's called the makom of the metzias.
Even before that the void space happens.
I'm just saying, in theory, there is such a space. That's going to be where the consciousness of the world, right? Now, before he makes the tzimtzum, that space is filled with light. In other words, in the place that would be a feeling of separateness and existence, there's an infinite light shining into it, and therefore there's a non-experience of existence. But what does that show you? That the place where it is contracted, what is he contracting? He's contracting a light from an arena, an area where there would be metzias, right? But what about the area of light which is inside of God, where there's not even a havamina and a theory that there would be a Metzias there, he's not contracting the light from there. Right? Because as we're going to soon see in a second, there it's not shy to contract light. You can only contract light from an area where the light is, so to speak, shining. So once it's shined out into a place, where's that place? The would-be existence of the world. Once that light is shining out in that place, it can be unshining from that place, and therefore give existence to that place of the world's consciousness of itself. Right? So when we talk about the tzimtzum, where did it take place? It took place in the arena of light, which is, so to speak, filling the Metzias of the world, which is already an extension of light, a shining of light. So the shine can unshine. But the source of the light, which is still Or Ein Sof inside of Hashem, that's not relevant to say on that source of the light that you contracted it from somewhere, because it wasn't shining to begin with it. You can then unshine it and contract it. Does it make sense?
It does, but...
You following this, Shmuel?
No.
Again, let's read it inside. Mizeh muvan in Nosaf. Right? You see where we are? 4 lines down. For here we're going to find an additional point. Shatzimtzum hurak b'bachines haor. The tzimtzum took place only on that light, on that breed of light, shahaya b'malias kol hametzias, that we spoke about a second ago, that was filling the whole metzias, right? Which means to say there was a theoretical domain where there could have been a world, and this light was shining in it, and therefore there was no world. Therefore, when the tzimtzum happened, it tzimtzumed it from that place, where there would have been a world. Masha ein kin kefisha Or Ein Sof lamayla. Not so, on the other hand, as the Or Ein Sof is above that place, in its shoresh, b'chinas atzmus, in the essence of God. And the essence of God is not the place where there could be a Metzias. Right? The essence of God is sort of God to himself. The place where there could be a Metzias was flooded with this infinite light, and therefore when he made the tzimtzum, he unflooded it from this infinite light, but he didn't mitzamtzim the light inside of his atzmus, he only mitzamtzim the light that was shining outside of his atzmus. That's all we're saying. Shesham lo shayach lo Mashiach or Elyon Pashu b'mali as kol Metzias. In the atzmus of Hashem, it's not relevant, that quote from the Arizal, relief blowing inside the house. It's, and inside of Hashem, in the Atzmus, it's not relevant, those words of the Arizal, to say that there's a high light filling up all the place of the Metzias. Because inside the Atzmus, there is no such thing as the place of the Metzias. There's no havamina, right? There's no would-be thinking that there is a other existence there. The only place there's a feeling that maybe there's another existence is outside, so to speak, of Hashem, in this area where the creation could theoretically be made, right? And there you can either shine the light and obliterate it, or unshine the light and make it be. But inside of the Atzmus, which precedes that whole conversation, it's not shy to say that he removed the light from there.
So it's all happening in the same space?
Yes, there's no space really, but it's, again, what is the space? The space is the would-be experience of existence that creations could have if Hashem removes his infinite light from there. That's the space of the Metzias, right? It's all taking place inside of Hashem, but the point is that there's some region within himself where he designated where there could be a feeling of separateness and consciousness of a world, right? And in that sort of virtual space that he's created, he can also negate the feeling of them. So he's playing with this virtual world, whether they can experience themselves or not. But if you back it up and he's going to say, I'm going to remove the light, he can't say he's going to remove the light from where the source of the light is shining from, because that's not relevant to being removed. There's nothing to take it away from. It's inside and one with him. Shaharei sham hurak inyan hayacholes. And why is that? Because there, in his essence, there's no actual light shining. What we call it is the yacholes. What does the yacholes mean? Ability, right? Which means I can shine. In the essence of Hashem, before he actually shines the light, he can shine the light. The fact that he can shine light is already a level of light. But it's a level of light that has yet come to actually take any form or shape. And so therefore, it's the ability to shine, it's the ability to not shine. It's a thing, but it's not really a thing. Only when he actually shines it, then he can say, I'm going to unshine it. But if it's just in the state of I can shine, which is already sort of, it is the source of the light, the fact that he can shine it, it's already in a somewhat state of existence inside of his essence. There, it's not shaykh to unshine it because he hasn't even shined it yet. He just has the ability to shine it. So in his essence, we call this state of light the yecholes, the ability. And therefore, it's not tzimtzumable. You following this? Yes? It's in potential. Azai lo shaykh gam in tzimtzum. Therefore, tzimtzum is not relevant at that place. Simple enough. But there's a little bit of a chiddush here, as you're going to soon see in a second, because he's now going to quote the Alter Rebbe, which is right in line, right? Who did he quote? Baal Shem Tov, Magid. Now he's continuing this Torah from the words of the Alter Rebbe. It's amazing. As the Alter Rebbe explains at great length in Torah Or and Likutei Torah, where there he says that the Indian of the Tzimtzum umakom panoi b'chalal hu rak b'ha'or. Right, so this is a well-tread idea from the Alter Rebbe, where he explains that when it comes to Hashem making this tzimtzum, an empty space and vacuum, it's only able to create such an empty space upon an area where there's something called light. But the luminary, the source of the light, it's not shaykh to say that you mitzamtzem it, right? So what's a bit of a chiddush in this mimer is that over there it seems like what the Alter Rebbe is saying is that there's God himself, who basically is the source of light, but he's not light. And then Hashem shines this light, and therefore when Hashem unshines the light, what's left over? God himself, right? By the way, I just want to introduce over here a very famous and serious debate called the Tzimtzum Kipshuto or Lav Kipshuto. You heard this before? This was the great debate of the Misnadim in a philosophical, besides the fact that they just had some sinas chinam involved, they also had like a philosophical stance that the Alter Rebbe actually insults them for having. He says basically mud is covering their eyes because it's like such a gross mistake. But nonetheless, they actually made this mistake, and it's a very serious like philosophical error that the Vilna Gaon held and others, all of his students. And the Alter Rebbe just says this is such a mistake, and that's why we won this argument, right? But he basically says, is the tzimtzum kipshut or lav kipshut? The Arizal, it's all based on the words of the Arizal. Everybody agrees on the words of the Arizal. The Arizal said Hashem created a tzimtzum and removed it, his light, from an empty space. So they understood the tzimtzum to be kipshuto. In other words, as it sounds, that there's actually a place that God made without God in it. Chas v'shalom, right? And they understood that this all filth. In other words, these were major heavy-duty Kabbalists, right? Errored Kabbalists, but they were the smartest people in the world. It's easy, even a genius can just go on the wrong track. But they were understanding that this is the cause of evil in the world. That everywhere where you have evil, what you have is a place where God is absent of. So it famously comes down to like God is not in the bathroom, right? And you can't say Torah in there. It's a place of Tumah. Why? Because God's not there. And if you say God is in the bathroom, you're like a heretic, right? So, and where does this come from? Because God, Arizal, our greatest Kabbalist, God removed himself, and here comes the source of good and evil. So it's almost as though evil is like a real thing that God made where he's not in it. So the Alter Rebbe comes and says like, hello, you ever heard of Einod Milvado? Like this is just like not, even he said every simple Jew knows this is not true. It's just that you got confused on the words of the Arizal. So you like went on this crazy idea and you made this whole philosophy about it. But that's not what he means. What he means when he says that there was a tzimtzum is exactly what we're saying right now. When there's a tzimtzum of the light. And when you remove the light, what's left is actually higher than the light. It's God himself, the essence of God. In that place of absence, there's an absence of light, but there's not an absence of God, God forbid. And therefore, the philosophy is totally switched and crazy, which means God is in the bathroom, right? And on the contrary, if you say God is not in the bathroom, you're the heretic. Right? It goes the other way. But the idea is that inside of evil and all kinds of klippas and negative forces, not only is there God in there, but there's a level of God in there which is higher than all revelation. It's the highest of all highest heights of God. And this is where the true meditation of Chassidus comes from. We're meditating on the achdus of Hashem, that Hashem is one. This is the answer why bad things happen to good people. It's like the answer of all questions in life. Because negativity and hurricanes and fires and all these things, they're also God, and they're even a higher level of God, but it's God hidden. And if you can unlock the hidden God, then you can have the atzmus of Hashem, right? So like this is the idea of like this gamzu latova, this basic faith and trust that a Jew has, even when he sees evil, that itself is turning the darkness into light. And this is kind of what the whole Hasidic, like Judaism runs very strong in this idea of Amunah Pshuta, right? Amunas b'chachamim and tzaddikim, like it's like, we just know that it's good. We can't explain it. Adrabah, the unexplainable good is even a higher good.
Do you believe in Hashgacha Pratis?
No, the Hashgacha Pratis is another whole aspect of this, right? That in fact, the notion of Hashgacha Pratis, Rabbi has a whole letter about it. It's in Geras HaKodesh, very, very deep and interesting. It turns out there was different levels of what people thought Hashem was overseeing in his world. Some people said he was overseeing only tzaddikim, and by like overseeing the tzaddikim, everything else sort of was just like covered by them. And said not only tzaddikim, it's also just the Jews. And then he said no, there's some were even more radical. He said not even Jews, but also all mankind. And then some went further, and he said not only is he overseeing all of mankind, he's overseeing all the species. So Hashem like looks over cows, but not like Betsy the cow, right? And so there was one opinion which was rejected by all of the Rishonim, basically, that no, he's looking over every single thing, and everything that happens, God is involved in this such thing. And this was basically a rejected opinion. Comes the Baal Shem Tov, and he's like, no, that's the one that's true. Everything, and he explains that Hashem is mechadish b'chol yom b'tuva ma'aseh bereshis, and it's impossible to be otherwise. It's a kafir in Hashem if you don't realize that He's in everything. But you have to understand, great Jews, the highest caliber, were going around not thinking that. It's almost like we can't understand what it was like before you could just pick up a phone and talk to your family across the ocean. It's like a dimension of reality that we mamish can't figure out even what they were thinking. Just like there was a time when people were like running with their tongues out, chasing idols, and we just can't understand what the excitement was all about. Things changed, and the Baal Shem Tov basically showed us like this whole new understanding. And now, if you try and understand it the other way, you look like a heretic. In any case, this is the Indian. What's the chiddush here? I think we have to go. What's the chiddush here of the Rebbe in this mimer? He's saying not only is obviously Hashem can't be contracted. Because you can contract the light, right? But you can't contract Hashem. That would mean Hashem's not in that place. He can't contract himself. He's everywhere. But what he's saying in this matter, what we just read, is that not only is Hashem's essence not contracted, but the source of the light is also in the same category. It's called the ma'or, or what we call the luminary, or what we just call the yecholis, the ability. Not just the essence of Hashem, but the essence of the light. That what light can be contracted? The light that shines. But the lights that inside of Hashem's essence, before it shines, is also light. It's also an aspect of the Or Ein Sof. What we're going to see is that's called the Or Ein Sof, that's Labai Labai Lad and Kate. It's a very high level light. It's not necessarily his essence, it's also just an aspect of him, which is a light which shines up. It is also untzimtzumable. It's unable to be affected by the tzimtzum. Which means that what we're going to conclude here is that the tzimtzum is only shayach to the light which is possible to fill the matzias. But there's no concept of a tzimtzum of a light, that very light as it is in its source, that light can't be contracted.